My husband and I used to live in a house in St Asaph. It's actually a flat, it was above a social club. And St Asaph is a very small city in the north of Wales. Very old building, as I say, dating from the mid 18th century. It had gone through loads of changes, reconfigurations, and so forth. And it was supremely haunted. Various psychics over the years had identified two, three, maybe more presences. The presence in our flat was quite benevolent. But further into the club, that was a different matter. Now, we shared a wall, our kitchen wall actually adjoined the wall of the gents' toilets for the snooker room. And one morning, about 6 o'clock-ish in the morning, my husband was up doing some work in the kitchen, which also doubled as our office, and he heard the gents' toilet flush. It's a bit odd. Checked his watch, it's about 6:30 by now. That shouldn't be happening. Maybe it's the cleaners. Well, they've recently installed CCTV throughout these social clubs, so he waited until he heard noises downstairs that told him that the staff were there, opening up, ready to start work, basically. So he went downstairs and said, can we check the CCTV? The snooker room. And so they played it back, and spookily, at about 6:30 in the morning, about the time Colin had heard the toilet flush, on this image, CCTV image, it was like a cross between a puff of smoke and a cloud, and it was brilliant white, and it shot across the screen diagonally from the direction of the gents' toilet right across the snooker room. Now, various people saw this and said, oh, it must be car headlights reflecting from outside. Fair enough, yeah. Reasonable explanation, if only it were true. Because, in fact, you could see on the CCTV that, yes, it was dark. It was winter, so it was still dark outside. And, yes, occasionally headlights did go up and down. Sometimes you could see there were obviously two reflections, so it's a car or a van or something. Other times it was just one, so motorbike or something. In no case was it the same as this puff of smoke, white cloud. Totally different. Now, it's a little odd, isn't it? A ghost that flushes the toilet. If it had just stopped there, yeah, you just think that's quite funny and just coincidence, and who knows where that smoke came from. Of course, you could also say, well, was it the cleaners just getting there early? Except that the CCTV, of course, had recorded the cleaners arriving. They arrived about 7:15, 3/4 of an hour after this event. They also were filmed. You could see that they were dismantling or turning off the alarm. So whatever had created this smoke within the room had also managed to bypass the alarm, which wasn't possible. Certainly no human could have done it, no animal could have done it. So we're still left with the question, who or what was responsible? Never been able to answer it, except that strange things happen in that snooker room. People are pushed. People feel something behind them. They feel a chill, sudden chills. They feel all sorts of presences that threaten them. There are some female bar staff who refuse to go up there on their own if there's nobody else in the snooker room. It is that scary. And its presence, the presence of that particular spirit, whatever it is, doesn't purely confine itself to the snooker room and the gents' toilet. It goes a little bit beyond there, and it has been known to cause some rather nasty accidents. And I have 6 inches of steel in this arm to prove the veracity of that. But as they say, that is another story. Happy Halloween, everybody. Enjoy.
So this is a true story. My nan told my mum before she passed away. When my nan was 8, she went into Selly Oak Hospital in Birmingham with rheumatic fever. She was very ill for a very long time and didn't come out until the age of 12. Several times the doctors actually thought she would pass away. This was almost 100 years ago, so well before the days of penicillin was invented. And when a temperature would get dangerously high, the doctors would actually roll her bed out into the balcony outside, even in the depths of winter, and would only put a thin tarpaulin over her to keep her dry, but to keep her very, very cold. And she was left out in the cold on that balcony many times, but there was 3 times where she was particularly bad, and the doctors feared that she wouldn't make it through the day or the night. And each time this happened, my nan would tell people afterwards that she saw a little boy, a little blue-eyed, curly-haired, blonde, curly-haired boy sat at the end of her bed, calling out her name. The first 2 times that my nan told her mother this, her mother just completely ignored her. But on the 3rd time, my great-grandma, Annie, broke down in tears and actually confessed to my nan that she actually had a brother named Edgar, who 7 years previously had died, a little boy who had blonde curly hair. Now, Edgar died when he was 18 months old, and my nan never knew or was never told about him. No one had been told, in fact, because his death had to be kept a secret. Now, Annie and Robert, my great-grandfather, lived in a small village in South Wales. And when Edgar was 18 months old, Annie was preparing his tin bath, which she filled with boiling water, and then went out to get the cold water. Unfortunately, in that brief period of time, Edgar had managed to climb out of his high chair and fell into the scalding water. They rushed the boy to hospital, and in those days they treated burns by wrapping them in cotton wool. Later, he was crying for a wee, and Annie, wanting to comfort him, went and picked him up. And the doctor said that the shock of being touched on this poor little boy's body actually killed him. So Annie was going to actually be charged for manslaughter. So Robert and Annie ran away to Birmingham. I don't know exactly what happened with the courts, but this was over 103 years ago. So I believe they got away, but the grief completely destroyed Annie, and she developed severe epilepsy, and Robert never forgave her. So the two never spoke of Edgar. There were no pictures. The only thing that survives is a very small old teddy that Annie had to hide away. So my nan never knew she ever had a brother, and only found out on the three instances where she almost passed away, where she saw this sweet little boy smiling at the end of her bed, calling out her name 8 years after he had died. Spooky.
That's fucking creepy, man.
My scary story is I did a fright night in a Tudor building in Manchester. It's called Odsal Hall, and lots of teams of people go there because it's so haunted. And you stay there all night. It was a charity event. And I was sat on a table with a group of people, a round table. And I was the spokesperson because nobody else wanted to do it. And I was asking if anybody was with us, could they please come forward? And as I was speaking, my hair, which was really long at the time, my hair started to fan out and stood up and started to cross over my face, over and over and over. It just kept doing it all the time. And then it settled down. And then I asked a few more questions, and the table started to vibrate and rock a little bit as I was speaking. But I also went then into another part of the building, and it's a bedroom, and there was a medium with us, and we all had to sit on the floor, all cross-legged in a circle. And he said, would anybody like to sit in the middle of the circle? So obviously I said, I will. So I sat in the middle of the circle and closed my eyes, and I had my palms up on my knees. And I felt my two hands go freezing cold, and a complete wind went up into my face there. And the medium said to me, what can you feel? And I thought, I do feel a bit of an idiot saying this in front of everybody, but I thought, no, I'm going to say it. And I said, I feel like somebody sat on my knee. And he said, there is. He said, there's a little girl sat on your knee. And then he asked me, can you see anything of the little girl? And I could see blonde hair and a dress with like a paisley pattern on, and it was green and gold. I said I could see a green and gold dress, a green and gold dress. And he said, that's what she's got on. She's got long wavy hair. He said, she sat literally on your knee looking outwards, holding your hands. That's my scary story.
Just moved into a house. I absolutely, I should say, did not believe in ghosts or presences. And just moved into a house in Old Town, which is in Headland Bridge, and almost from the first few days of moving into the house, one of the first things that happened was I put a stew into the oven and a slow, like it's for slow heat, and went to the gym, and came back sort of 3 or 4 hours later, and the oven was off, and I thought maybe I'd forgotten to turn the oven on, but opening up the oven, the stew was warmish, so it's clearly been on for some time. That's how this all started, and then things would start to happen in the house. From the bin lid in the kitchen would be sat watching TV, and the bin lid would suddenly, you'd hear a crash, and the bin lid would be in the middle of the floor in the kitchen, and put the bin lid back on, check that it was completely flat, and then sit down, and then a few minutes later crash bin lid. This all sounds like I always think that if somebody was in a house that things like this were happening, why didn't they leave? Why didn't you just walk out if this was really genuine? So this is how all this started. And then I'd put something like on the back of a chair, and I'd leave the room, and then I'd come back in, and it'd be on the floor in the middle of the room. And I got to the stage where I wasn't, because I'd be in my bedroom, and suddenly there'd be a door would just fly open, and it was something that just sort of seemed to build and build. And we were shooting before dawn at the time, and I remember going on set, and I can't remember who it was. The first AD said to me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not really sleeping at the moment." Because I explained to him, because all these things that had happened, it wasn't just this, it was loads of stuff on top, glasses exploding. And he said, "Whatever you do, don't bring it on set." And I said, yeah, that's okay. So anyway, we were filming a scene with Eileen O'Brien, who's playing one of the characters, and we had a blonde light that was one of the big, tall sort of daylight lights, and it was all safely padded around with weights, and then we did the shot. Eileen walked actually, before she came onto the set, she fell upstairs. There was a big crash behind us, and she fell upstairs. So that was the first thing. Then she did the shot, and then she left the set, and the next thing that happened, this big blonde went just came crashing down close to where she was stood. So then the first AD said to me, "You bought it on set." It was serious as well, and we were very serious. So we were looking at decorating the rooms in the house. We've been used to sort of living in places that are really sort of bright, and for some reason, Alan had decided that he wanted a particular color green, a particular shade of green, for this room, for one of the bedrooms. And I was thinking, it's not a bright house anyway. It's pretty horrible as far as light's concerned. So anyway, we started looking for this particular color that he was into, and I pointed something. He said, "No, it's not dark enough. It's not like that." And he was really specific about it. And eventually, he found something that was similar to the color that he wanted. So we knew that it wasn't actually available. So we went to somewhere like B&Q and had the color made up to exactly this shade. So So the rooms were a sort of magnolia, sort of a light sort of cream magnolia, and there was, you know, they were wallpapered and magnolia'd over, and then he painted this wall and said, I have no idea, this looks so dark, I don't know why the hell did I choose this color? And anyway, so that was finished, and it must have been a few days later, we were sort of moving furniture around in the room, and we were pulling out one of the chairs and accidentally tore the wallpaper, and underneath the wallpaper, the original wall color was this green color. So things got to a head where we decided that if it didn't hurt us, then it was, you know, it was going to be okay. Because you think about, we're thinking about moving house, but it got to the stage that we actually believed that it was the other person that was doing it, and partly down to this whole haunted house thing. Oh, there was another thing as well. Just before I finish the story, was I came down to, and one of the guys, somebody that was at my office, said to me again. I was obviously looking very tired at the time. Said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm really not sleeping at the moment because." And he said, "Whereabouts do you live?" And I said, "I'm in Old Town." And he said, "Oh, it's the children from the factory." And I went, what do you mean, the children from the factory? And he said, "Do you have a cat?" And I said, "Yeah, we do. We have a cat." And he said, "Does it do that thing where it sort of looks and it's seeing something?" I said, "Oh, surely all cats do that." He said, "Yeah, but we've had cats. We lived up there by the factory, this old factory that was an old Victorian factory that had children that worked in the mills there, that he said that died, and they end up killing cats and upsetting people." And he said that and I thought, because he didn't know that I lived there. He didn't know anything about, you know, these facts. So anyway, and he said he's not going to get any better. We ended up moving out of the area. This is mad. So it's children. You're saying it's dead. It's the children that were killed in the mills that are haunting. So anyway, so we ended up, myself and my partner ended up splitting up, and partly I'd say it was because of all this, but also what happened was a few months later, somebody that moved into the house. I've got to end it there. Sorry, I can't. Yeah, sorry about this. I got to end it there.